I'm Rev.Jessie Brandon, and you're watching Epiphanies. I'm a life cycle celebrant and a metaphysical minister, and on Epiphanies, I get to bring my two loves together, books and people. So today, we're going to be talking about Revolution. Now, this is, I guess you call it an anthology. There are 40 different people in this book, and it's true mental health stories of love, personal evolution, and cultural revolution. And with me today is my guest, Natalie Harris.
Hi. Natalie
is a Barrie City Councillor, a retired advanced care paramedic. She is the author of Save My Life School, a first responder's mental health journey, and the foreword was written by six-time Canadian Olympian Clara Hughes. She's the president for the not-for-profit of a book called Brainstorm Revolution, which is what we're talking about today. And she's shared her recovery story all across Canada and played a role in the implementation of PTSD legislation for first responders at both the provincial and federal level. So it is my pleasure to welcome Natalie Harris.
Thank you.
It's so nice to have you here.
Thanks, Jessie.
So I am just going to ask you to take the book and tell me all about it.
Okay, wonderful. So yeah, Brainstorm, a mental health revolution is, we like to say, it's sort of similar to Chicken Soup for the Soul, but mental health oriented.
Nice.
So there's 40 different authors, all from all over the world. Some of the authors you might know are Michael Landsberg from Off the Record, TSN's Off the Record, and the founder of Sick Not Weak. We also have Shelley Hoffer, who's the mom of Zach from Zach Makes Tracks.
Right.
We have Stéphane Grenier. He received the Order of Canada. We also have Deb McGrath, who's Colin Mockery's wife. So it's a really great array of authors, and they share stories. Basically, the title kind of gives you a hint. So Revolution we broke it into three different words. So love is one of them.
Nice.
Obviously, evolution of recovery, and revolutions that have happened with the specific authors.
Oh, that's super. Thank you.
Yeah.
So why did you choose to bring this book today? What do you want the readers to know about this?
This book really inspired me in so many ways because not only personally, I've found the healing power of talk, and through my own recovery and writing my own book, I found being able to share my story made stigma fall away from me and made it so I was able to heal. So with this book, it was wonderful because not only did all of the authors get that opportunity to experience that by sharing their stories, but they also, as the book was published and released, they found that having the platform to share their story was so healing for them as well. So not only were people reaching out to them and saying, thank you for sharing, and I can relate to you, or my family member or my friend can relate to you, it was so healing that the authors were able to share their story as well and to talk. So this is a not-for-profit with Shelley Hoffer actually, and Heather Down, who's the publisher of the book, local publisher in Barrie, and we raise money to bring the authors to the stage now and give them their voice and allow them to continue their healing journey that way.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
So how long has the book been out?
So it's just been out for half a year, I think about 6 months now, so it's a very new book, and we've been traveling and doing a lot of book signings at different chapters, and we had our first production on Valentine's Day, and the topic was unconventional love stories. So we chose specific stories and authors from the book to tell their stories on stage at 5 Points in Barrie, and it was wonderful, and it was all just example, love about your pets maybe, or love about a family member, love about an experience in your life, and it was wonderful. It was a great experience. It was a sold-out event, and
super.
That was our first fundraising event. Yeah.
Oh, that's really great.
Yeah.
Now, is there a particular story, maybe more than one? I know that would be hard to choose, but is there one that really spoke to you?
That is a tough one. I must say Michael Landsberg speaks out to me a lot. He's very raw and real and says it like it is. So I have a blog that's called, a podcast that's called Brainstorm as well, and I interviewed him. And what we did was we transcribed the actual interview with his permission and put it into the book. So
Nice.
it's his story about him actually opening up for the very first time on public television that he battled with depression. And it was so inspirational to me because it was the first time I'd ever heard of a male that was coming forward and sharing the stories that I had heard from so many different females. And he has inspired just a wave of transformation for so many men that are able to share that they have depression too and they're battling. And it basically talks about how Sick Not Weak was formed by him.
Really?
I love it. Yeah,
Cool.
it's great.
Can you find it and read us a snippet?
I
That would be
absolutely can.
that would be
Just
great.
find the little, where are we here?
So,
There,
Sick Not
10.
Weak is what?
Sick Not Weak is Michael Landsberg's own kind of foundation organization. So he does a podcast every day. It's called a Lands blog, and he shares about his own experience with mental illness and his recovery journey, and he still battles with it almost every day. So it's very, very current, and I love it. I follow it every day.
Okay.
So yeah, so this is a story. It's called Do You Want Dinner? And this is how it starts. If any of you feel let down by the story, I will buy you dinner. So far, no one has ever tried to cash in on that. I know you struggled with depression in the 90s, but I've never heard you speak of it. I've only read about your journey. Would it be okay if I ask you how you're doing in the interview? I asked two-time Stanley Cup winner, hockey player Stéphane Richer, as we walk out of the green room right before we go on to film an episode of TSN's Off the Record. He hesitates. I continue on and say, I don't want to embarrass you, you don't owe me anything, but I thought it would be interesting, and if it's okay with you, I will share my own struggles. His eyes widened, his face turned to me. You struggle? He asked, surprised. Oh yeah, I say with conviction. As a matter of fact, I just came out of a 1.5 year long battle, my biggest struggle ever. We go on set and start to film. The interview is going well. Before our airtime runs out, we go to a commercial break. I say, I know you struggled with depression. How bad was it? And how are you doing now? He responds, well, it was bad enough that I tried to take my life 5 days after winning the Stanley Cup. I thank him, and I share that I too have struggled. I'm not ashamed. I'm not embarrassed. It's just something that I have experienced. It's horrible, but that doesn't mean I'm trying to bury it. So that's a really good clip.
That is amazing. Oh, I
Yes.
can't wait to read that.
Yes.
It is so prevalent, and I think that it's kind of twofold in my understanding is, number one, it's prevalent because more and more people are talking about it.
Right.
And it's prevalent because of the way the world has gotten so busy and so, I think, disconnected through
Right.
technology. Instead of bringing us together,
Yes.
it's kept us apart and continues to do so.
I agree,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, it's hard. I think I try not to be on social media as much as I am, but there's good things about social media that obviously help me with my profession. But I try to encourage my kids to not be as connected as they are, but I have to practice what I preach, and that's hard sometimes. So
Yeah.
being reminded to do that's really important.
Yeah, I know that a lot of my communication with my daughter, who lives in the south end of town,
Right.
is on social media.
Right, right.
Now, her excuse is that she works 2 jobs and goes to college and, you know, has a house to run and everything. But
Right.
I like to think that mommy's somewhere in
Right.
that list,
Yes.
but you never know.
Definitely.
Yeah, so how did you go about bringing the 40 people together? How did you find them all?
Well, social media. So yeah, we put a call out on social media. We made an actual email address that people could put the submissions to, and we got hundreds and hundreds of submissions from people all over the world. It was really
Wow.
difficult to narrow it down to 40, so that's why it will become an anthology, and we will make some more books. But it's been such an amazing journey for all of us who've been a part of this. We have it's like a family now. When we go and do a book signing, it doesn't matter who can make it. Hopefully, obviously, depending on where people live, certain groups can go to the certain book signings. But you're not alone. You're not sitting there by yourself, and you get to connect again, and you know you're all together in this book, and it's beautiful. I love that part of it.
Yeah, that would be really something.
Yeah.
It's funny, somehow I missed that, because certainly I have my own story. I think everybody does.
Yes.
I think anybody who says that they haven't suffered from depression maybe hasn't known what to call what they were feeling.
That's true. That's true.
I think there are a lot of life events that can really cause us to maybe drop to our knees and question everything.
Absolutely. So maybe you can be in the next one.
Well, we'll see what happens.
Yes.
I'm starting to write my own book. So
that's great. That's amazing.
Well, that's the first time I've outed myself.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm so excited for you.
Yeah, thank you. We'll see if it ends up anywhere beyond my own paper.
Great.
But
for you, I'm excited.
Well, I think everybody does have a story in them, and it's a matter of whether you think you have a message for people.
100%.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
And so I would assume that these stories all have a message beyond I'm dealing with depression.
Exactly.
Can you tell me some of the stories?
Yeah.
Maybe some of the success stories.
So it talks about battles such as eating disorders, so people that have conquered that, not only depression but anxiety, PTSD. So Stéphane Grenier was a soldier, and he came back from, I think it was Haiti, and he had some horrible visual memories that he had to recover from. So his sharing of his story has been so powerful for him in his recovery. But basically, there's lots of different types of mental illness that people battle from. And the people that are the authors of the story aren't necessarily the ones that battled, but they will also share their family member's story. So it's really great because you get to see perspectives from every version of that story. So my daughter, she's 23, and my son's 13. They saw me go through depression, anxiety, PTSD, and I was really fortunate to be part of a documentary on CBC called After the Sirens. And they, the producers, interviewed my kids as well.
Oh, really?
So you get to hear a different version of what they were experiencing. So it's kind of the same thing as this book. There's lots of different angles that people get to experience.
Right, that's really wonderful. And I did just see something about that documentary.
Right.
And apparently this living in a cocoon doesn't always work.
Oh.
I find that I really have removed myself from any discussion of politics or war or religion. Mind you, I do discuss religion, but only from the perspective of my own life. But yeah, so tell me a little bit about After the Sirens. After the Sirens
is a great documentary. So it's put on by CBC, and you can go to CBC POV, point of view docs, and you can click on the link and still watch it. It was just nominated for a Canadian Screen Academy Award for Best Documentary, and it follows 3 paramedics through their journey through PTSD. So myself and 2 paramedics that are out west in BC. And basically, we just talk about life, we talk about the downs, the ups, every angle of what it's like to be a paramedic. I'm sad that I can't be a paramedic on the road anymore because I did battle with PTSD so much, but recovery is possible, and I'm here today after overdoses and a lot of different hospitalizations and treatment, and it's a great, again, it's a point of view of 3 different lives, how they're impacted in similar ways but different ways. You know, we're all doing the same job, different ends of the country, but we still had diagnosis of the same thing with PTSD, and it really just analyzes how that became an epidemic for a lot of paramedics and other first responders across Canada and around the world. So it shone a light on that finally.
Right. Well, something about myself that I don't think a lot of people know is that I was a 911 dispatcher.
Oh, wow.
And then I was an EMS dispatcher.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, lots of people don't know. I was with the police department for 3 years, and I left to pursue another avenue.
Right.
But I know just from my own experience on the end of the phone, not having to be out there, I have very clear memories of some stories that just, you know, I mean, I'm covered in goosebumps right now when I think of it.
For sure.
There was the young gentleman who had a family, and there was a horrific snowstorm in Toronto where I was, and his wife was stuck, and so she made it home, and he went to get the car, and the car was being carjacked as he got there.
Oh my goodness.
And the call that I got was an Asian man who didn't speak English, but what he kept saying to me, scream, help, outside. And that's what he kept saying. And so I couldn't get officers there in time, and unfortunately that young man lost his life.
Wow.
And so those memories are still with me. I can still hear that man yelling. So I just can't imagine being you, having to be right there with the person who is hurt or has hurt someone, or threatening to hurt themselves. It just blows me away what you must have seen and faced. And so I just want to take a moment to thank you for the job that you did, because that is a service beyond measure.
Thank you. Thank you. I call you dispatchers and our 911 operators the first responders. So I thank you for your service as well. That's wonderful.
Well, it was one of the best jobs of my life. I really enjoyed it. And I realized early on that I probably did not have the temperament to stay with it. One call that I had was I was back on the 911 taking the calls, and this young girl called me, and she'd seen someone through her living room window. She just had a studio, so she was in bed, and she happened to glance up and saw this man standing in the bushes. And so she didn't have a telephone.
Oh no.
And she didn't happen to be wearing pajamas. So she wrapped herself in her sheet, ran out into the hallway to the payphone, which happened to be right beside a screen door.
Oh no.
Top half of the screen. So anyway, she's talking to me, and I'm telling her that police are on the way, and we know that everything's going to be fine. And all of a sudden, I didn't recollect this, but she let out a scream, and so did I.
Oh no.
So I was at the very back of the room, and I jumped up, and I'm yelling to the desk, get the cop, get the cop. And I'm meaning get him there, right? Because I assumed that the guys grabbed her.
Oh my gosh.
It was the police officer on scene who had grabbed the door and scared the heck out of her, scared the heck out of me. But it was really funny, because back then they used to have what they called 159s, and that was either a good report or a bad report.
Okay.
And the staff sergeant that had to give me my bad 159 said to me, as far as I'm concerned, you're the kind of operator I want out there, because you were so totally into the call and so willing to do whatever to save that girl's life that, you got attention, and you made sure people paid attention. And
That's
I said,
amazing.
well, a lot of my coworkers were not happy.
That's great.
Yeah, so I've got the good stories as well as the bad.
Good.
So did you have to read all of the stories that came into you?
Yes,
You personally?
myself and the publisher Heather Down. We
I
read
know
them
Heather.
all. Yes. So I must say Heather dedicated herself more to it than I did. She was very good at editing and reaching out to people. So I give her kudos definitely. But yeah, we both definitely read all and they affected us. It's definitely we tried to pick stories that weren't just about trauma. Like, we wanted to make sure that this book wasn't a book about trauma. So we had to weed through stories that were just stories about trauma and say that it wasn't a good fit for this book. But we wanted things that were about resiliency and love and recovery and evolution, revolution. So there were some people that we put the call out on social media, and I guess their interpretation was that we were looking for stories about trauma in their life, but that wasn't what we were looking for. We were looking for kind of a slice or a story about something in their life that was revolutionary to them. So that's what we collected in this book.
Yeah. So do you already know what the next book is going to be called?
It'll be the same. It'll just be different compilation of stories. We have some already kind of on the side that we want to pursue, but it'll just be the second version. We might add different, like maybe lean towards a different theme. For example, we might write a book that's very addiction oriented, or maybe postpartum depression oriented. So we really realized that there were so many stories out there about certain themes, and that would be a good idea to probably do that too.
Right. So talking about recovery, you've obviously done an excellent job of dealing with everything that you had to deal with. And I love where you've gone now. You're a Barrie City councillor. How did that come about?
That's a great question. When I was a paramedic, I knew just through kind of experiencing other people's stories about PTSD and the struggles they were going through, getting approved by Workplace Safety Insurance Board. This was years ago. It wasn't recognized that if you were diagnosed with PTSD that was work-related. So it was years and years and so much of a fight for anyone to actually get coverage. So I helped with many other people to lobby Parliament Hill and Queen's Park to get legislation for first responders that made it presumed that if you are diagnosed with PTSD that it does come from your workplace. So it's a workplace injury. And that's changed the life of so many people.
Yes.
So we are able to get the coverage that we need, which equals the care that we need, the treatment that we need immediately. And that kind of put me into the world of politics. And I never thought that would happen. So when it came time for people to put their name in to become city councillor, to run for city councillor, it just seemed like a good fit. I was still missing that connection to my community that I felt when I was a paramedic. So I said to my family, this is something I'm considering, and they supported me right away. So
That's wonderful.
I started campaigning right away, and I was successful.
Yeah, obviously, yes. And you're the only female on council this year.
Yes.
Yeah. So how is that going?
It's great. I mean, it's fine. I'm really happy with the entire council. I'm really excited because last night or the night before we have 2 student mayors, and they're both female.
Oh, great.
So I just said when I was welcoming them, I'm like, I'm so happy to have some more girls around the table right now. But I mean, it's I don't ever want to say that because I'm the only female that deters from any of the wonderful skills that the other men have, of course, to be counselor. But I'm used to being kind of one of the guys sometimes as well. I grew up with 3 brothers and a family that was hockey, so I fit right in. It's totally okay. And I think I bring a good edge to the table.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, is the female energy is different.
It is.
So do you find that there is any... I certainly don't want to say anything bad about council, because I think anybody who puts themselves forward to do that job is working hard for the city. And so I just wonder, are there any things that you kind of have to press the point about that make you feel, guys, you're not listening to me because I'm a woman, or because...
Not yet, no. I have to be honest with you. I haven't experienced that at all. I just feel like we're all a good collective voice together, and I'm really blessed with that so far. I think we all have it's kind of like a hockey game where you're out and sometimes you're arguing and you're against each other and you're debating things, but then when the game's done, we're all friends, we're all there for each other. We all have the same goal in mind, is to make our city the best city it can be. So we've had some really good topics that of debate, such as the opioid crisis.
That was my next question. So tell me what's going on there.
So myself and Keenan Aylwin, we brought forth a motion probably close to a month ago now, to call on the federal and provincial government to call a state of emergency on the opioid crisis. And with other things, it was quite a long motion, and we are expecting letters from the Minister of Health probably any day now. That was part of the motion, was to get a request back, a response back from them, and hear what their thoughts are on our request to declare an emergency. And there's been a lot of different things evolving with that motion, a lot of amendments, but the conversation is there, and that really makes me happy. We're learning about a lot more committees that are out there. We're trying to gather information and build the best city that we can, and to address that as much as possible.
That's really wonderful. I applaud that work. It can't be easy. So what does it mean for you in the future?
I don't know.
So we're not talking PM or anything?
No. It's so funny. Some people have said that, though, but I'm enjoying this right now. I'm just so brand new in the councillor role. So 4-year term, who knows what that will bring afterwards. But it's definitely filled that void personally, that I wanted to be closer to my community and to my neighbors in my neighborhood. And when you walk around and knock on 5,600 doors and meet your neighbors, you definitely feel like you are part of the community again. And I love it. It's great.
Yeah.
It's great.
Do you find that you field a lot of calls because, being a counselor, are your constituents calling you?
Yes.
And how's the approval rate?
Great, so far. I mean, you can't make everyone happy, unfortunately.
True, and there's always people who are so focused on just their own slice that they don't see all the other issues.
Exactly. I'm just honest. I try my best. I try to inform people as much as possible. So votenatalie.ca is my website, and I always post blogs about what's going on, trying to keep things current and making sure that people know what's happening in their next door neighbor, in their world, in their community. But it's a daily thing that happens, that people will call about certain things like parking and potholes, and safety is a huge thing, community safety. So it's great to be able to work with city staff and find resolutions for those things.
Yeah. And what about getting back to the opioid crisis? Are you getting a lot of calls with people wanting to discuss that?
Not really, to be honest.
Really?
No.
So has there been a lot of community involvement in the yay or nay of, aren't they hoping to open something downtown?
Yeah, a safe consumption site. So,
right.
This Simcoe Muskoka opioid strategy, which is a collection of different departments such as the health unit, CMHA, the Gilbert Center, they're putting in applications to have a safe consumption site, and we should hopefully know that within the next couple of months whether or not Barrie's approved for that site. But there's a lot of conversation, and a lot of family members who've been affected directly by opioids will come forward to be part of the conversation, which is wonderful. So
right, that's great.
Yeah, stay tuned. You'll learn more about that soon.
Well, I'm happy to hear about your blog on your votenatalie.ca.
Yeah.
I'll be checking that out. As I said, I stay away from those things because I found that for my own, my own depression and my own interaction with the world, I found that I could maintain a more peaceful balance. I know there's crap going on out there in the world, but I just, I prefer to work on bringing love to where I am, and then hopefully pushing that out further. So Natalie, thank you so much for being with me today. That's Councillor Natalie Harris here with us today, discussing the Brainstorm Revolution, and it sounds like a fabulous book. Natalie, we didn't even get to, I just want to quickly say,
no problem.
This is Natalie Harris's book that she wrote herself, Save My Life School, and I hear really good things about it. I haven't yet gotten a copy, but I guess I will. Oh, this is for me. Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. Well, there we are. Thank you for joining me on Epiphanies. Appreciate your time. We'll see you again next week.